right, hello everyone. I know I am going to be the target of nasty comments tonight, but that's cool. Whatever. I feel as though I have an obligation to point out my opinion, which is, whatever. I mean, not always right, but it's just something I think that's interesting. Now, I unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, had been around long enough to remember the internet bubble. Now, back then, I was the head of trading at a big money manager in the city, and I've traded for some of the best. Mary Gabelli, Steve Cohen was a market maker. So I've been around the block a few times and I've seen this stuff before. Okay. And bubbles come along and they pop, and another one comes along, and so forth and so forth and so on. Now, one of the main things that I'm hearing from people who say, oh, this is like a common mantra now. Oh, this is different from the internet bubble because of blah blah blah. Well, guess what? In the internet bubble, it's like this is different from the Nifty 50 bubble. Blah blah blah. That's a characteristic of a bubble. So people are basically saying, you know what? It's not a bubble because Nvidia actually makes a lot of money. Okay, fair point. I can understand that. But back in the internet bubble, the three leading companies were pretty much Intel, Cisco, and Microsoft, companies that made a lot of money. And here we have the chart of Intel. Now, don't get mad at me. I'm just trying to teach you guys a lesson. I love history. I love the markets. It's amazing to me as someone who has spent 2 decades in the professional trading world or institutional trading world, the myths and the misconceptions that go on in the retail trading community about what market makers do. I was a market maker for 2 years. I know what market makers do. You probably 95% of you that are listening to me now, your opinion of what market makers or your thought of what market makers are is wrong. Same thing with hedge funds. Anyway, okay, market bubble 2000, Intel was a real company that made a lot of money. The freaking stock fell by 81% from the top to the bottom. Cisco. When I first started trading back then, I was an over the counter trader, and these stocks traded in the over the counter market. Now, they were like the leaders back then. Here we have Cisco. Cisco down 87% from bottom to top. Microsoft, the most steady of them all, down 60% from bottom to top. So here's what I'm saying. I don't know where stuff is going to be in a year or 5 years. I'm not a futurist or whatever they call them. I'm not a fundamental analyst. I've seen this stuff before. It's a bubble, but bubbles can go on for a long time. So if you're long, just go along for the ride. Don't try to pick the top. When it looks like it's reversing, that's when you get out. Never mind getting the top. It's not going to happen. There's an old saying on Wall Street, the only people that can get the bottom and the top are liars. Accept the fact that you're not going to get the exact top. And when the reversal starts, that's when you sell. That's it. Every bubble has popped. And anyway, I hope this can help you all. As stock market jobber, I mean, I'm a big fan of history, and I think being a history buff helps me be a better trader because I understand that there's nothing new under the sun. There were different names, there were different people, there were different players, but it's the same thing because when we talk about markets, we're not really talking about technology. Okay, we're talking about psychology. If you're looking at this chart, you're looking at psychology. All right, now I got to show you guys this. Oh man, I am such a friggin' chart junkie. I just, my wife's like, "Yeah, come on, let's watch a movie." Blah 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 blah. All right, let me just show you guys one thing before I go. Let's just check out this chart of the S&P ETF. Check this out. See here how what was resistance becomes support. This is because of seller's remorse. People sell here, price goes higher, and they like, oh, I want to buy my shares back. If I can get it back at the price I sold them at. See here how resistance here becomes support here, so forth and so on, so forth and so on. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the Dow Jones, okay? And I'm going to click on all, and this is the Dow Jones going back to 1897, all right? When Dow and Jones were actually the guys that started the Wall Street Journal. So that's when they created the Dow Jones. But regardless, check this out. All right. So here we are, the Dow Jones in the late 1800s and early 1900s. What do we see? Amazing. Resistance becomes support. Okay. Resistance becomes support. Support stays intact. Market crashes in 07, crashes in 1915, finds support at the same level. Why? There's people that sold here that regret doing so, that they go to buy their shares back here. There's no one alive now, unless you're one of those like, time travelers or whatever, Highlander, who was trading back then. The companies are different. The people are different. The names are different. I mean, think about this. Back here, cars weren't even invented yet, or they weren't widespread. Planes weren't invented. This is like over 100 years ago. But guess what? Resistance can become support. Resistance can become support, because just like now, people back then had emotions, right? Maybe these other things have changed, but human psychology has not. So when people ask me about, is Nvidia in a bubble, it's like, friggin' of course. Any stock that becomes a household name is in a bubble. Should you sell? Not yet. Bubbles can go on for a long time. Just be aware, because when things like this happen, you might be like, oh, okay, XYZ is at 10, and you go to the bathroom and you come back and it's like at 7. They can turn so quick. All right. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for taking some time with me. Please don't send me too many nasty messages. I'm not criticizing you for owning NVIDIA, blah, blah, blah. But I know people get emotionally invested in this stuff. And I'm just here to try to help. I mean, I'm not a super genius or anything like that, but I got a lot of experience. And I think if you become a member of our community here, it's going to definitely help your training. All right, everyone. That being said, I will see you all soon.